Hey, Gobo here. This good-looking cowboy is our newest 5-star hunt unit and is what happens when you give Sushang a gun. He is super satisfying to use, pumps out some explosive burst damage, and has some very strong energy generation that I think could be overlooked. Today I'll be going through everything about Boothill, how his kit functions, how strong his Eidolons are, and what his best builds are. I'll also discuss energy and team compositions, including ones without Ruan Mei, since Boothill performs excellently without her. This is all from the Creator Experience server, so things are subject to change, but there'll be minor mechanic changes, and I'll update you all in the pinned comment. So like and sub if you want to win your next 50-50, and let's begin. Boothill is a 5-star physical hunt unit and our first dedicated 5-star break DPS, which is very exciting. He has a very solid stat line with a great base speed, which is perfect since we will want to be maximizing his turns. He also has a weird energy cost of 115, but that's a-okay for this gunslinger. Onto his awesome kit. Well, his basic attack is a cheeky little kick, but doesn't do anything game-changing. His skill, however, has a very cool mechanic. Targeting an enemy forces Boothill into a standoff for 2 turns, and this is based on Boothill's turns, not the enemy's. First, Boothill's basic attack will be enhanced, and secondly, cannot reuse his skill until standoff ends. As for the enemy, they will be taunted and can only target Boothill. AoE skills can still happen, of course. Both sides received increased damage from one another, which is a vulnerability modifier, so a multiplicative boost to all damage, including breaks. This would be 1.3 times at level 10 for Boothill's damage against said enemy, which is very powerful. After the enemy he targeted has their weakness broken or they are killed, Boothill gains 1 pocket trick shot and standoff ends. If you break and kill in one move, you can even gain 2. Allies can proc it, but I would definitely let Boothill do so unless you need him to swap targets. Finally, the skill does not end the turn, which is normal, but just like with Blade and Xingque, it does mean you can extend buffs that normally would tick down at the end of your turn. So Bronya ult normally drops in duration, even if ulting on the ally's turn. But if you use her ultimate after Boothill's skills, then you get an extra buffed action. It's a useful tip. So Boothill's brand new enhanced basic attack, Banning the Hammer, is his bread and butter. It does physical damage to the enemy and can only target the enemy in standoff. His ult can target whoever, even in standoff, but this cannot. It also can't regenerate SP. However, since it is where most of his damage comes from, it means you can enter a rotation of skill, enhanced basic, which means you only consume 1 SP in 2 turns rather than 2. So he's a little better on SP than a lot of carries while still popping off. Now you might be saying, Gopil, this enhanced basic multiplier is terrible. And you're right, but his talent is what makes it ascend, and it's also how we use our pocket trick shot from the skill. Remember, we get these from breaking and or killing an enemy in standoff. So now every pocket trick shot will increase the toughness reduction of our enhanced basic by 50% for a total of 150%. This means our 60 toughness damage at 1, 2, and 3 trick shot goes to 90, 120, 150 toughness damage respectively. That's every single enhanced basic once ramped up. Then, when the enemy is weakness broken during or before your enhanced basic attack, you deal a percentage of Boothill's break damage on top if you have pocket trick shot. Kind of like how Kafka detonates dots, Boothill can reproduce break damage of his own. This, just like Harmony MC's super break, is insane to have on a break DPS since it removes the problem of no post-break damage. This also means he doesn't need Harmony MC to shine, which is great, but can still make use of them. This needs you to have a pocket trick shot before you attack, so your very first break on an enemy won't be activating this talent. Now this break explosion can go up to 170% at 3 stacks. Since your normal break is technically 100% of your break damage, this means you're doing nearly 2 times your normal break damage on every enhanced basic on a weakness broken enemy. If you don't know how much that is, it's a fudging ton. His ultimate, Dust Devil's Sunset Rodeo, shoots a bullet deep inside a nearby cliffside. The falling debris applies physical weakness to the enemy targeted for 2 turns and does a high amount of damage, as well as 90 toughness damage. It will also delay the enemy by 40%, which is very powerful for survivability, but also for fitting in more super breaks or his own break explosions. From testing, it can't stop enemy actions like an Imprison from Weld can, unless you break. However, ulting on their turn will delay their next action, so it won't be wasted. Having a physical weakness implant on Boothill is essential for letting him brute force content, just like top crit and dot DPS can do already. Breaking is everything for his damage after all, and now he can do so on non-physical weak enemies. His technique also lends him a hand in this regard. The target of his very first skill after using this technique will implant physical weakness onto the enemy. This means before that first ultimate, you can start ramping up trickshot and start breaking as soon as possible. His HE will give him crit based on his break effect. 10% of his break effect converts into crit rate and 50% into crit damage, up to 30% and 150% crit rate and crit damage respectively. So you'll need 300% break effect to maximize this, but it's not too bad if you don't. It also means he barely needs to build crit, which is great. Around 80% of his damage is in breaks, so this HE will let him still do decent kit-based damage while still being able to focus on break effect and speed. Boothill's A4 reduces incoming enemy damage from enemies not in his standoff, which is useful since he might be tanking some nasty hits when he duels elites. Finally, his A6 is insane. 10 energy for every pocket trick shot, no matter what. So breaking an enemy gives 10, killing an enemy gives 10 already, and now an additional 10 if he kills them in standoff, which is very likely. Considering you can break and kill Squishy in one move, that's 30 free energy, and he already gains 30 per enhanced basic for a possible 60 energy in one turn, giving him some of the fastest energy generation ever. This means he can implant more weaknesses or just spam out toughness damage and delays. Do not underestimate this A6. His trace bonuses give him a giant break effect boost, which is perfecto, and then a nice HP and attack buff. The HP is useful considering that taunt that he does. So his gameplay loop will consist of you scaling and enhanced basic attacking. You will prioritize weak enemies at the start to ramp up pocket trickshot to about 2 stacks, then you'll send it onto the main elite. In the second wave, you just go straight in for the kill. His standoff has some nuance to it too. You can cancel it by ulting the enemy and breaking them, or having an ally break them. This is if you need to swap targets, since it will end said standoff. But if you don't want to cancel it, then ulting early may hurt your SV economy when against multiple targets, as you will end the standoff and have to skill again sooner rather than later. If versus one enemy, your ult is best used for more toughness damage to break faster. You can also delay pivotal enemy actions by 40% every ultimate, and you generate ults pretty quickly. With his high break speeds, Boothill can opt for lower survivability teams and try to clear super fast. Just be careful of his standoff taunting a strong enemy and getting Boothill worked. Now this bad boy can hit 3 to 400k damage in a turn from breaking into his enhanced basic with 3 pocket trickshot. Even without the break, that break damage reproducing is able to hit around 200k damage, and remember the break bleed dot afterwards. That's a lot of burst damage and can 1 to 2 tap bosses. He is truly the Argenti of single target. So on to Eidolons. His E1 lets him ramp up much quicker with a free pocket trickshot at the start of the battle. He also gains 16% def ignore. This is pretty nice by itself at a 9.36% DPS increase, but gets better the more def % shred or ignore you stack. Say from a Pella, E1 Ruan Mei, a quantum set, his signature, etc. What I really love about his E1 is that you can insta-kill squishies even in MOC 12 now, meaning you get that instant ult and instant 3 trick shot, so this Eidolon is secretly crazy. E2 sees him gain a skill point and 2 turns of a 30% break effect buff every time he gains pocket trick shot in standoff once a turn. This is honestly a very strong Eidolon as it now makes him SP neutral while still outputting some disgusting damage. It lets him run crazier break teams and setups with the added SP for the team. E4 is a bit mid like most E4s. It reduces the damage he takes in standoff from his taunted enemy whilst increasing the damage they receive from him. Since he already applies a 1.3 times vulnerability to them, this gets a bit diluted and results in only a 9% increase in damage. His E6 however says screw the hunt path, and Boothill instead joins the Antimatter Legion and becomes a destruction unit. When triggering the break damage from his talent, you now do an extra multiplier of the original damage, so it's a multiplicative increase instead of additive, which is much stronger. At 170% break damage with 3 trick shot, you will do 40% of the original damage to the central target at E6, or a total of 238% break damage to the central target. You also do 70% to adjacent targets, which will be 119% of your break damage to adjacent targets.
Holy baby!
Do you need it? No, but it definitely makes this kit even cooler. For builds, we haven't got too many break-oriented sets, so nothing too difficult right now. For Quantum vs Quantum Weak, we'll see the biggest gains, but that's not always happening. 4 Thief is next in power, or 2 Watchmaker, 2 Thief. For Quantum vs non-Quantum Weak is still fine for that Def Ignore, since break doesn't scale off of crit or damage percent from the other sets. It will need you to have high Def Shred alongside it to be beating 4 Thief though. And don't bring Def Shred allies just to make this set better, prioritize instead getting the best allies possible. Finally, a 2-piece combo of a break set and hack space also works, and to be honest, if you have good enough subs, you can go rainbow. For plain ornaments, we of course are going to be going for Talia. Other DPS sets work for kit-based damage, but break damage won't benefit, which is the most important part. For main stats, you'll have 2 options, full break effect or some crit optimization. Full break effect can see you literally going any chest piece, even healing bonus if you really want, provided it has some cracked break effect and speed substats. Same goes for the orb. Who needs physical orb when it won't boost that giant break damage anyway? Speed boots always, and break rope always. If going for crit optimization, which will boost your enhanced basic and ult damage by a nice bit, then you'd want a crit rate chest and a physical damage percent orb. Still prioritize break effect as it's more important than crit and also get some speed. And thus for stat goals, we will want to hit 300% break effect. With Signature, this is attainable out of combat with 12 break substats, the 4-piece and Talia 2-piece. You'd need a whopping 22 without his Signature. It's doable, but it's hard. Hitting 300% out of combat isn't 100% needed though, and ally buffs of course can reduce this. For example, you can aim for 280% with Ruan Mei, 250% with Watchmaker on an ally, or even less if running Harmony MC. Still, try to stack a ton of break effect regardless. I wouldn't drop all the way to 200% just because you're running allies with break effect buffs. For speed, definitely go above 134, then definitely try to hit 145 for Talia, and 160 can be a final goal if you want to min-max actions for a 1-cycle clear. If running Ruan Mei, it's a bit easier to reach. For your crit ratio, go for 50 to 50 out of combat. It looks terrible, but in combat at 300% break effect, that will be a nice 80 to 200 ratio. Considering the base ratio every character has of 5 to 50, this can be easily achieved with a crit rate chest and some substats. Now light cones are a bit weird with this character, but let's first see his signature. 60% break effect, lovely. 20% def ignore on break damage, incredible. And a 12% speed buff obtained at 150% or higher break effect, which is always happening on Boothill. This lets us hit much higher breakpoints with ease. This could also be used on a break variant build for any hunt, and especially for Su Shang, who already enjoys break. It is hard to truly calculate how good this cone is, since speed is varying, and the break can help you optimize into some crit, for example. Either way, it should be a 15% DPS increase on average over Stellar C, depending on how many sources of additional Def Shred you have, going even higher if you attain a total of 100% Def Ignore. All the crit, damage percent based cones are around the same in strength, and they're fine to use for sure. The thing about break DPS is they don't really care if they have no cone passive, as we don't have many beneficial cones for break as of yet. So Stellar C and Swordplay are good all-around statistics for that enhanced basic and ult damage. However, since we are a break-focused gamer, Adversarial and River Flows are much more desirable for the speed. Adversarial just needs you to kill, which is easy, and River Flows needs you to not take damage, which is a little harder. Since we probably want to run Gallagher, I just say go Adversarial. Just watch out for the low base stats. With this cone, you'll want to focus on pure break effect and therefore opt for some tank main stats instead of crit and damage percent. Also remember these speed buffs can affect your speed tuning. Now for some quick energy rotations. Normally, 115 energy would take about 4 turns to recharge, but Boothill will be deleting enemies, and his pocket trick shot accumulation gives him 10 energy each time. So he can easily reach a 3-turn ult rotation. On top of that, he can get an ult in even 2 turns, provided he is breaking and then one-shotting squishy side enemies, due to that free 30 energy. This can also be done on bosses if they are low enough from your previous rotation. Let's finish with some synergies and what teams I think you should run. Bronya, I'd say, is his favorite support. Those bonus actions are incredibly strong for Boothill, as 2 back-to-back enhanced basics should be killing any boss we have right now. It also supercharges his ramp-up time and makes it nearly non-existent, letting you clear first waves so much faster. The SP generation on E1 and or S1 are ideal, but you can always bring a Pella if needed for SP, whilst also benefiting from her damage amp. Ruan Mei's break efficiency makes those enhanced basics now break bars even faster, now hitting 225 toughness damage total. The break effect buff and res pen ensure even high breaks, and her delays ensure you'll be hitting those nukes all the time. The ideal combo pairing for Boothill in my experience would be Bronya and Ruan Mei. Now, why not Harmony MC Go Pill? You hype them up so much. Well, first off, they're still great for Boothill. However, he will be one-tapping squishies, and 1 to 2 tapping bosses. So extra damage on top will be wasted, and boosting said damage to ensure one-shotting is much stronger than adding additional overkill damage. He also procs his own break damage on his talents, so that crazy super break mechanic isn't needed on him, unlike other break DPS that don't have this luxury. You can still run them together, of course, and it's an awesome combo. Gallagher, as always, is our premier sustain for break teams. He generates the most SP among sustain, and gives us even more vulnerability for that break damage. He's also a great help for wearing down elites and bosses' bars in some cases. Just let Boothill get that final tap for the most rig for your buck. Hela and Silverwolf are also excellent units for your second slot in the team. They provide a very nice damage amp for his big break nukes and have good SP positivity. I don't like Sparkle for Boothill, as you don't want to run fast Sparkle with him because he's already going to be built for speed. In that case, you can run her on a -1 speed setup, but Bronya is better for that slot provided you have the SP. You can still run Sparkle though with Ruan Mei. If you want to run no sustain, you can opt for Robin with great SP planning or even Asta. Both provide your team with many more actions, and with all these crazy delays and breaks and speed and advanced buffs, you can definitely run zero sustain if you're deep enough into the endgame. With the E2 Boothill, I would for sure try doing so, as you have a lot better SP economy and damage. So I hope that helps any Boothill wanters. He comes out in just a week, and I hope you will get him. Like and sub if you want to win your next weapon pulls, and thanks for watching. Thank you to my amazing YouTube members, and have a Guoba day.